Okay, hello everybody, and welcome back. This time, physical security and any of the policy that can go around that. So, when the computer world first started, it was easy to protect systems. Okay, easier, right? Especially from a physical security perspective. They were locked away in some cabinet. But today, we're actually tasked with protecting devices that range from, the cloud on one side. These are multi-complex systems to tiny handheld devices anywhere in the world. So frankly, security professionals, we often focus on the technical controls and sometimes we overlook the physical controls. I'll give you an example. To secure a laptop, we might think about the chassis intrusion system, right? That's a way that lets us know as security professionals that the CMOS is getting hacked, right? Or we might use port security on switches. Those all come naturally, but think about it. What about the locked server room, right? Those servers, it has the servers, routers, maybe switches and racks, right? We want to lock that and even lock the cabinets inside that are there. So physical security and information security, they go hand in hand, cybersecurity. Protecting mechanisms so include this physical security perimeter, physical entry, creating secure offices and rooms, monitoring and alerting and those sort of things. So information security professionals, we have to involve facilities and physical security people in our cybersecurity policy decisions would be my point. So to go over that, we are going to cover these objectives here. And before we begin, and I've shown this slide before, but I want to make the point, remember, physical security should be integrated with what we call communication security. That's about the data. The computer security, which is about the devices, servers, and workstations. And even network security, right? We want to make this a consolidated team effort in that process that we are building our security considerations, right? So, when we think of physical access control, right, we want to consider that in part of our solution, right? We want to make sure that people, that we have this delaying system. And that's what really the facility protection principles are: deter, delay, detect, assess, and respond. It's all about slowing them down, deter them. Don't even make them interested. It's either they don't know what the facility is or it's just too hard to get into. But if they want to get into it, a physical defense in depth is a way to slow them down. And then, of course, detection, which would include things like our cameras and our badging, and then an assessment, like through a security guard perhaps, and then respond, of course. So this would be a way of integrating security controls into our current effort. Now, when it comes to fences and things, there are types of intruders. There's the casual intruder. So if that's all we're afraid of, we may want a 3 to 4 foot high fence. If there's a casual climber, then a 5 to 7 foot high fence. But if we're really concerned about the determined intruder, then we frankly want at a minimum an 8 foot high fence, barbed wire, maybe a 45-degree angle. And frankly, always include guards with that, right? This is the cognitive approach to physical security. People that are using their intellect to look at ID badges, make sure people have them displayed, that sort of thing. So these are some things you could do in designing security policy that uses physical security. Now, there are internal controls that we can use. There are access systems and hardware locks that are both possible in this. So, for example, for access control systems, we might use an access list. And the default rule would be, hey, deny all, right? I might use a bump key, which is just a normal key and those bumps on it. It's called a bump key, right, to fit into a locked door. I have to decide from a policy's perspective, do I want to fail safe, which means fail in a manner that everything is open and people could get out of a bad environment, or do I want to fail secure, where the doors shut in even though there's maybe a fire going on? When I worked at a secure center in Hawaii, we actually failed secure because there were so many secrets in that room that if there was an emergency, door shut, locked down, nobody could get in. It was better just to let that material burn, would be the example, okay? We can also use ID badges, right? With your name on it, your picture on it, and that sort of thing. Never let people take a picture of somebody wearing their ID badge, because we're actually giving away information and that could be copied, right? We may even want to have a chip with a digital certificate on our ID badge. That would be something good to consider. We may have a magnetic strip on our badge, which would give employee an access code that's encrypted. The tokens could even be done with a key fob, right? We can use an activated key swipe or even a sensing system. I'm sure you've seen those in various work environments. Other internal controls include man traps, right? A man trap is meant to stop tailgating, so people can't come through it. Only one person can go in. The door has to shut behind you before the next door will open, and that's called a man trap, right? Sometimes piggybacking is also stopped through a man trap, piggybacking or tailgating. And then of course we could do a protected distribution system, or PDS, right? And this would be a way to use power and cables in terms of controls, right? We could also do monitoring. We could do access logging, so when you swipe your card, or even if it's just the guard at the gate, they can write down your name, make you sign before you enter. So we can do access logging. And remember, the default is deny all. If you're not on the list, denied, right? Just like in a router, perhaps. We can use closed circuit TV, and you'd want one of those cognitive thinking guards monitoring that. You could even have fake cameras, right? Or hidden cameras, and cameras with night vision equipment so they can see clearly in the night, or even wireless cameras are sometimes useful. We want to capture video and send it to a specific system from a set of displays, right? Like a central room where we're monitoring all these cameras all at once is really the way to do that. You also would want to consider HVAC systems, right? So what's the temperature you want it at? Do you want it normally between 70 and 74 degrees? What about humidity, right? If you have too low a humidity in your server room, for example, you'll end up with electrostatic discharge. And if you have too high, you'll end up with condensation and corrosion. Neither one of those good. So you even want to put your racks, front racks facing each other, creating hot and cold aisles along the way, which is cheaper than to cool and manage in your environment. So you save fuel, you save on the environment, and you improve the functioning of your machines. You'd also want to consider emanations from the computer, right? When you tap on the computer, you're releasing emanations, right? And so we want to use a tempest. It's a standard for dealing with emanations, like a Faraday cage, for example, where you can block these electromagnetic signals or these emanations, or even these communication between a command and control center and the device. You might, somebody might want to use command and control if the device is compromised to wipe it out. Well, we don't want that. Once we've captured it, we want to be able to do forensics. So you want to put it in a Faraday bag, then a Faraday cage, and you want to plug it in and make sure power is retained to it. So that's kind of a quick overview. That was some exciting stuff, I think. There's a lot to consider. So the premise, so it's all tied into layered defense, right? The technical controls, the physical controls, the human activity, etc. So the premise of a layered defense model is that if an intruder can bypass one layer, the next layer of control should provide additional deterrence or detection capabilities, right? Layered defense is both physical and psychological. And that's why the difference in the fence sizes. Most people, if they see a fence, won't even bother, right? It has a deterrence impact. The mere fact that it appears to be secure is in itself a deterrent item by itself, right? And so it's interesting that, you know, as server farms proliferate around the world, right, with this cloud computing and stuff, according to IBM, 90% of the data in the world today has been created in the last 2 years alone. Wow, that's incredible. So we want to make sure that we combine these sense of administrative controls, maybe some logical controls like technical controls, and then of course physical controls, and integrating these types together. Okay, so how do we secure a site? Depending on the size of the organization and how much information is being processed, it can range from a closet with one server to an entire complex of buildings, right? So think of the most obvious risks, such as theft or malicious activity. We also want to consider accidental damage or even natural disasters in our consideration of the best possible approach. Remember, if somebody can get access to our network, physical access, it is damaging because all the technical controls we put in place have no impact, right? They can copy passwords by doing shoulder surfing. They can add a keylogger onto a device. Never leave somebody in a room, an office, alone. Say, oh, wait here, I'll go get the person you're looking for. No, wait out here in the hallway because we don't know what they're doing inside of there. So these are kind of things that can be done to secure a site, right? And these are why we would want to secure it. Now, the location is very important and a first consideration, right? So the design of a secure site starts here, right? Is there political stability in the area that we want to operate in? Is it susceptible to terrorism? What's the crime rate? Because it's not just the building, physical security, and if there's value in the building, people will break into it. But in addition, it's the safety of our people that work there, that travel in and out, right? So what are there adjacent buildings? Is there roadway? Is it on a flight path, right? Is the power grid stable in the area? Is it vulnerable to natural disasters like an earthquake, for example? I live on a fault zone, right? So it's susceptible to earthquakes. So best practices are going to dictate that facilities be inconspicuous and unremarkable. They should not have signage saying, hey, here's a server farm. Come one, come all. Okay, I'm going to take a short break and we're going to come up back and finish this week's conversation lecture in the next session.